So, I don't know if you guys have noticed in my recent videos that when I'm pedaling, all you hear is creak, 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 creak. I've gone through everything and cleaned it, and I've noticed that my chainring is getting some wear spots in them because these are aluminum, and a new chain because my chain is probably stretched due to the fact I'm 225 pounds and I race once a week. So this is a brand new setup that was for the Grands in November. I raced it one time before the Grands, and then I raced it during the Grands, and it's gotten a little noisy. I've also noticed that my alignment's off here, but we won't go into that. Definitely make sure it's aligned. But today I want to show you guys how to change your chain with a pressed in pin. Mine happens to be a solid pin. I went with the black Krupe 3/8, or is it 3/8? 3/32 half link, solid pin, black. I've had good luck with these chains. I don't think I've ever had a chain snap on me, but I really don't want that to happen. With all this noise down here, it's making me a little nervous, so we're gonna go ahead and change it. First thing you're gonna wanna do, loosen these guys up on the rear. 8mm. Loosen those up. My chain tensioners are 5mm to loosen, and they also have a nut on them, so you'll need an adjustable wrench or the correct size wrench, whichever you want to do. They're not usually that tight, so I just adjustable wrench. Five millimeter, loosen the rear chain tensioners. Also, that was probably sped up, so you can't hear it, but I can hear there's like some dirt and stuff in there because I don't really go through the bike and clean it every week, nothing like that. But it probably needs to be gone through, or I just go ahead and remove every single bolt and wipe the dirt out of everything just to make sure it's good to go. Do not get your fingers stuck in here like I did one time. Ta-da. These guys here I believe are 5 as well. If you're like me and you buy cheap tools and you have a ball on the end, don't use the ball end until you're actually loosening it. To break it loose, just use the regular end on your T-handle. Then I always like to screw these back together. You get half the pieces. And as far as I know, for when I've changed chain rings, they almost always just, you can finagle them off without taking the whole bottom bracket apart. Or not necessarily bottom bracket, but whatever. So I don't know if the GoPro will let you see this, but these are starting to indent because this is aluminum and I'm a big boy. So the guy who previously worked on my bikes always told me that this will cause your chain to stretch. And that means big boy go falling down pretty hard if the chain breaks or if I have a problem with this. And like I said, I have not had very much time on this chain ring, and it has definitely been the noisiest. And I don't know if I'm a fan of tangents, but if you hear a lot of noise, I mean, this is one thing that I think definitely plays a role in noise while you're pedaling. So anyways, we're gonna go ahead and break the chain off. You're gonna need a chain breaker for that. Now, there's a couple different types of chain breakers you can get. I personally have not used this one. This is for a motorcycle chain, and my dad handed this to me because we don't race dirt bikes anymore. We do have them over here, but if I ever need to put a chain on now, I've got this. What you need is one of these little guys, and they're pretty cheap, and I've heard that they break a lot. Miraculously enough, I have not had one break, but you can see that this guy here is bent. So we'll see how this goes. This will take your chain off and put your chain back on if you don't use a master link setup. I believe you can just hit it anywhere on here, but I'm gonna look for where I actually installed the pin and press it back out so that, well, I'll be honest with you, I don't have a reason. I just think it might be a little easier. Maybe easier on this fragile little guy. It's pretty easy to tell which one is, I don't know if you can see that. I could try and zoom in on it, but these ones are silver. This one's got a hole in it. It's not hollow, but it does have a hole in it. Set the chain on here. Really watch your alignment. Make sure that this is gonna push straight out. If it starts to turn or anything weird, or if you feel like you're cranking hard on this thing for no reason, definitely stop and look at it. Make sure you're not gonna break the chain breaker, because then you gotta go buy a new one. And once you get it on there, it should press out pretty easy. first chain's off. I don't know, I'm gonna save those and maybe screw around with them later, see if I can make a chain bracelet or something. Whatever. Maybe that chain I could wear on my wrist and it'll remind me of when I, you know, came unclipped in the gate at the Grand's main event. We waited all day for a main event and I came unclipped. So flat pedals is the way to go, I think, guys. Make sure you ride flats. Brand new chain ring. It's pretty easy to tell on tangents which is the front and which is the back, because the back has these little insets for your chainring bolt. So set it on there. Now I'm gonna be honest with you, a lot of people in bikes say to torque things, and I believe that that probably is true, but I don't torque my stuff down. I get them tight and try to not get them too tight, because these little itty bitty screws are what I'm basically standing on. So too tight and aluminum don't go together. So definitely look at the threads. Make sure you don't need to replace one, because I have had them stripped out and I have rode with these completely loose before, and you just want to be able to replace them. Now they do make a tool to hold on the back of these to tighten them, but I prefer to just start tightening them with my finger on the back to hold it, and then I snug them down. All right, those are tight. Definitely want to make sure everything's straight. I know a lot of times that these spider gears that actually come off can get bent. It's happened to me, and I think this one actually might have that problem. It looks pretty straight to me. There might be a spot. This one I think is bent. I don't think that is bent. I think it's the actual chain ring. Because there was some spots too where if you spin the chain, you'll get a tight spot and then a loose spot. And obviously something's wrong there, and it's usually this piece of aluminum or this piece of aluminum that hold that all together and straight. So definitely replace your spider gear if you see some wobbling in there. And you can pretty much toss this. I like to throw them back in my toolbox just in case I run into some weird problem. Next thing, I'm actually gonna go ahead and take the wheel off, and I'm gonna inspect some of this and clean it up before I put it back together. Definitely, if you can remove this, take it off. Make sure your alignment's good. Left to right, make sure everything's straight where the chain's not having to come over a little bit. That'll increase the chance of your chain coming off. Definitely clean it up. I don't know if you would use some brake clean or not. I typically use some brake clean, but I just try not to get it on any other parts just because this is stainless. I would put some, I usually use brake clean for it. You can use degreaser too, chain degreaser will work, but that's just what I use. So I'm gonna take this off, clean it real quick. I'll be right back and we'll put this chain on. Obviously, got your chain here. It's pretty much already gonna be lubed up. So if you wanna use some gloves or something, so you don't have to wash your hands, you'll have a pin, you'll have your chain. Now your chain, you might have to knock a link or two out of. That's the first thing we're gonna do. So, sweet black chain. I think black's gonna look pretty sleek. Half link chains. When you look at it, there is a direction that everything goes. The flat spot on the top goes up on the top side. The way I look at it is the thicker piece is on the outside, and then it goes smaller in the back, and that's the direction it goes. So this chain would be going this way, down, and that way. I can't really explain it great. Definitely look at the instructions, because I just know which way it goes. You know, I'm not great at explaining it, so. Now, I don't know how, like, you won't be able to see this as meticulous as I can, but if you see my brakes are pretty close to still lined up, that means that this is gonna be like a good spot to go ahead and break the chain. What you're gonna wanna do to measure before you break the chain is put it around and pull your tire back to where, somewhere where it's relative, like not tight, obviously it's gonna be too loose to ride on, but, and then you can look at your brakes if you haven't messed with your brakes and see where it's at, and that should be a good spot. Also back here, you wanna make sure it's not going to be all the way in the back. If I ever wanna go to a bigger sprocket size though, this probably isn't gonna work because the chain's gonna be too short and my wheel will have to be moved forward a little bit. But so keep that in mind. If you're thinking, if you go up a size or down a size, definitely put your bigger size on, do this and try to get it back right here. So when you put your smaller size on, your rear axle will be shifted back a little bit. But Okay, so I went ahead and pulled one of the solid pins out here. Make sure it's straight, because if it's not straight, you screw it up and that pin won't go in there, and first ride you probably end up on your face. Definitely wear a helmet on your first ride too, now that I'm thinking of that. Now we're gonna want to get our pin out. What we're gonna do is take this, push it through your 2 spots here, and then it will be in there and it'll have this little notch out, and the actual pin's on the back here. So you're gonna push it in. Once you press it in, don't push it all the way through. So pay attention how far you're pushing it in. And yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. We'll see how it goes. I've got it in. You can see here, it's even on both sides if you can see where the pin is, and then you're just gonna unscrew this bad boy. Pop that out of there. And then look at it and make sure it's even on both sides. All right, so our chain's on. We're gonna go ahead and put it on here on the sprockets. We're gonna go ahead and tighten up the chain, but you don't want it to be too tight. I've never had like a reference on how tight you want the chain to be, but this is like motorcycle chain tension. You usually leave a motorcycle chain pretty loose, but you don't want these loose and you don't want them tight. Loose, it falls off, tight, it breaks. And tight, you also can tell, because if this doesn't spin freely backwards, you usually have a problem. This may be a little tight, but I think it's gonna break in a little bit. Let's just see how this spins here. It's not bad. Usually it wouldn't spin that much if it's too tight. So, definitely make sure your brakes are tightened. Well, not tightened. Make sure they're aligned. Make sure definitely make sure that they're not rubbing or anything, because once you move your tire around and everything, it's every now and then, you know, you'll get something weird. So definitely check your brakes, make sure your wheel's straight, make sure your chain's straight, and don't screw too hard on the pin when you're, don't push it all the way through. My GoPro's getting hot, so we'll talk to you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Hopefully I'll get a chance to do some more of these if I ever need to put some new parts on my bike.
Go, let's go, 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 I never been so